So I thought it was about time I get into a bit of the story exploration, the character sort of thing. Now I'm at a place now where all the characters in these stories that start off for like 45 chapters are actually all together now. Now I never did this sort of introduction video or anything like that because I mean I knew it would take some goddamn time. Like I've even tried to explain these piece by piece, and like I'm 45 minutes in before I even get to here. And all these chapters, they've lived rent-free in my head for a very long time. Some of them were made on the spot. Like, honestly, I love that about storytelling, when the stories write themselves. Like, this shit was planned, right? Majority of it. But there's certain parts of it that just wrote itself, and it was amazing. Where's the one? Where's a good one? Like, so Sigund, right? She is my Stormcloak character. She's meant to be the daughter of a very powerful, prominent individual that doesn't know about it. But I pretty much, like, when I did the story, I had no idea how much I would write her a new story. Well, not a new story, but add to her character. I really thought that all I would get from her was, like, the attacking of the Thelmore fort and kicking the shit out of them. And I thought it was pretty much done. Like, the only thing I could do for her in story is by tell the Civil War story from her and her sister's point of view. And this is kind of what this one is. It's the Bear and the Dragon. And then there's a couple more down the line. I kind of want to redo this one because it's got all the women of the north in it. I've kind of removed it from my game. Here we go, Beck Loratus is another one to try to add in, but her story sprung out of control, man. Like, it really did. It just transformed on its own, and to be honest with you, I absolutely love the story. Like, she's one of my favourite characters, even though I'm not a Stormcloak character. But yeah, a lot of these did write themselves, and that shit was pretty cool. Like, she's got more personality than Senturos does. And again, she probably should, because she's a Nord that was born and raised and lives in Skyrim, but Senturos was not. But there's just so much there for her. And even Missing in Action was made on the spot, because eventually Marilia gets captured in one of the Bearclaw chapters. She goes to Windhelm, and I think it's like 6 months later we finally catch up with her. And the idea of this came to me on the spot while I was doing I think it was the Falskar quest line. I was like, Missing in Action, and I was like, wait. Well, I got the... I didn't fix it, but that one's lost in action, this one's Missing in Action. And I was like, holy shit, I should add Marilia in there. It's been a long time since I updated the story. It's you know, I might as well get her out, and all this sort of stuff. So a lot of these stories wrote themselves, and they've been living in my head rent-free for ages. Now, I want to get in the game, I talk about some of the inspirations, and some of the character designs of kind of how it came to be, because I'm actually in the right spot right now, where I did a post on this on YouTube, where I actually had an idea of how this kind of story, of kind of maybe the first stepping stone of how the story, multiple character play story came to life. Now, these are the main cast of the multiple character play story. Now, we're missing one, and I'll get to him really quickly, but there's a reason why he's not in this group. But we'll go and quickly grab him, and we'll place him in the list of, well, multiple playable characters. So, here we are. We've got our latest addition to the main character story. Now, a lot of these... This was actually the very place where this idea came to life. I was walking up here to Paarthurnax to read the Elder Scroll to go back in time and learn it. When I thought, how cool would it be if you were following the Dragonborn, if you were the follower instead of the main character? And this is kind of how all these ideas came to life. Not only did I become the follower of the Dragonborn, but the followers of the Dragonborn while I was still able to be the Dragonborn. So that's a bit of a tongue twister and mindfuckery. But it all worked out, because they've all got their own unique roles, their own unique quests in Skyrim that make them feel like part of the world. Now, the idea of the Dragonborn, Ragni, came while I was actually doing the Thelmore questline as this guy. Now, firstly, this was my main Dragonborn, right? This is my main character, the dude I always played as. Because I played Oblivion, I liked the Imperial race, and, you know, I support the Empire. Now, to me, it annoyed me. I could never figure out the role for his character, because it always broke, because here I am playing a legionary that's just walked into the Thelmore ambassadorry and killed their people, sold their information, and freed their prisoners. That is a fucking major act of espionage. You know, especially when you're a known Imperial soldier, you're not going to get away with that scot-free. But in Skyrim, you are, because you're allowed to go back to the Civil War, you're allowed to do all this with no consequence of what just happened. Which to me doesn't make any goddamn sense. That's just, you can't fit that in a story perspective, because it's fucking stupid. There needs to be consequence, but there's none there. You know, if the Thalmor figured out the Imperials did it, they'd call for war. And especially if that person was Dragonborn, they'd call for the Empire to be like, alright, surrender that person to us right now. He committed crimes. We'll let it go. We'll forgive the Empire, but give us that person. Because that person is an Imperial soldier that is a Dragonborn, which is a very, very great threat. Empire says no, they go to war. If the Empire says yes, they've just lost their greatest, you know, their absolute greatest soldier they'll ever have. But, again, it made no goddamn sense. And this is how Ragni was born. Because of that quest line. I actually made her when I thought of it, and I actually put her in a prison cell in the Thalmor Ambassador, and that's kind of how she came to life the very first time. She became a Dragonborn. I pretty much rewrote my character midway through the game, and that it was meant to be the Dragonborn, but then was no longer the Dragonborn. Now, Tonrock, he was first called Torba the Wolf. He was a Nord, but I wanted to spice it up and not make it so boring, even though Skyrim is a place of... But he's kind of like he's a Redguard born and, you know, kind of raised in Skyrim, but moved to Hammerfell and then moved back to Skyrim. Sort of, you know, a Redguard born Skyrim. But again, I'm not a really big fan of the Companions quest lines. It's so fucking boring, even though I'm a warrior. And it's probably why, because it's normally my playstyle. Just I use a two-handed to spice it up. Because I'm a sword and shield dude, as you can very well see. Now, Cecilia. I created her out of the inspirations of creating her. I wanted to do like a barbarian female character with like with a two-handed axe and all that sort of stuff. And then eventually came to the idea that Freya should be a werewolf. And I really liked that idea. She was a barbarian, she was a werewolf, she was a axe-wielding maniac. Because again, if it's two-handed, it's normally a sword for me. But I wanted to try an axe, and the only cool axe in the game that actually looks decent is the Rufalax. And then eventually I thought, why not create a vampire? And this is where Cecilia came along. Their stories are 100% branched out. Since I created her from inspiration of her, I put a story in there where eventually she would find this as a woman, as a young girl, and raise her. Cecilia's story background is Oblivion Crisis. She's like, especially with Skyblivion, when Skyblivion eventually comes out, I really want to see her in it, and she's going to be there 100%, but she's not going to look nowhere near like this. She's going to look a lot younger. She's going to be around early 20s, 21, and she's not going to be a pale-skinned vampire. We're going to see Cecilia from a different perspective in that story, which is going to be exciting for me, even though, you know, we've seen what she is in Skyrim, and seeing what she will be back then will be awesome, at least for me. But her background story was she was stuck in an Imperial fort that was basically surrounded by an Oblivion Gate in the Daedra. She went in there with 40 men, came out with like 9, badly injured, left dying on the table, and there was a vampire in there that was also trapped, and he was feeding on those that were going to die. And she died of the infection and woke up and broke out and went north to Skyrim. But that story didn't make much sense because I didn't like it, so I changed it to where her parents lived in Kvatch, she was an Imperial soldier, she had some time to spend with her family before she went north into Skyrim to serve in the Legion. And while she was there one night, a gigantic centipede-looking motherfucking thing came over the walls and killed people, and she went to go fight with the guard and get people out of the city, before eventually a gate opened up and trapped everyone that was still in the city, and that centipede walked over her parents' home and crushed him and killed him, and she was stuck in the cathedral, or chapel, before a man in Penrill's armor walked through and basically saved their lives, and she joins on the fight, just like these guys joined the Dragonborn, pretty much. And then, I guess, many years later, finds Freya as a 10-year-old girl, saves her, and raises her. And that's kind of where the story went with that one. Now, again, that was these two. I kind of get them a bit boring because, yeah, he can still die at this one. I've definitely not made him immortal. Now, Senturos, he was always going to be my Dragonborn, like I said, and I had to change that. When I was creating the story, I wanted, you know, like, I still wanted my character in it. I didn't want to play Skyrim without my character. But again, since he was no longer the Dragonborn, he no longer had a major role. He felt unimportant. But then I thought to myself, why not make him an Imperial soldier? Keep him the way he was, but don't alter him to become the Dragonborn. And that way, he has a severe importance in Skyrim, where instead of stopping Eldarin and saving the world, he stops the civil war. His actions contribute to ending it, and so that's still a very important mark. Now Sigurd over here. Look, I've already said a lot of this in my chapters, and there's, I guess, I'll put a little timestamp in here, probably. No, I won't do that. Her story was created because what if I played it as Stormcloak? I would have went a female Nord, native to the lands, but her story kind of grew around a character that I thought was, like, he just didn't make sense that he was in his 50s, he was in a powerful position, he had no wives and he had no offspring. Like, this guy was probably taking it in the arse. This is the way it looks. So I created her, her story, and her sister, because of that individual, but she's pretty much the opposite side of, she's the other side of the coin, because the talos of the septum, the heads of it is Tiber septum, and the tails of it is the imperial symbol. So I like to see these two as just two different sides of the same coin. And I really didn't think I'd get that much personality out of her in this story, and I really did, and I really like Sigurd. She's a cool, kick-ass character. She's very calm and collected when it comes to compared to her sister, who's very, like, asks questions never and kick-ass always. But back to Senturos. I didn't really know exactly how to create his story, so I created him as a bit of a, and I still haven't really gotten to that part of the story. I've gotten to sections of it, but I haven't finished it, and I want to do that much later on. But before he became quite prominent in the army, before he got thrown into the Great War, or sorry, the Civil War, he was looking for his sister because he was born to a whore. The potions they used to stop babies didn't work for him, and 5 years on and living in the whorehouse with the other kids, his mother gave birth again. But the potion failed. But this time, when she had the baby, it made her very weak, very slow, and eventually, about a week on, she died. And the baby was sold to an imperial family, a wealthy imperial trading family that had just lost their own baby but couldn't bear to return home to tell their family they had lost their child. So they brought his baby sister, as kind of like, this was our child, they never died sort of thing. But he was too old and he lived in a whorehouse, so they didn't take him, and he was eventually sold to the Imperial Legion, to train as a kid, basically to age up in the Legion and be sent off to wherever the hell they needed him when he was of age to fight. And that's kind of where it was. Like, when he was 5 years old, he was cleaning boots, sharpening swords, and cleaning shit, whatever, until he was old enough to start actually fighting and training. And before, when he was 17 years old, he was sent to Skyrim. And the story was 28, and this is the new year, so he'll be turning 29 or some shit like that. So I think he spent, well, majority of his adult life in Skyrim, and he still thinks it's too goddamn cold. That's his idea. Now, I should really put Ragnar here. I'll put her over here. When I get there. Minerva, I like this, man, because when I thought of like a character, I did think of a Nord. I had too many female characters, man. I really did, and that's kind of, I was gonna go with Lyris, and Lyris is over there somewhere. She's a big, tall bitch. That one looks like her. That's her. Now, I thought, common conceptions of a Winterhold character would be like a dark elf or a native to Skyrim, but I thought, why not a high elf? They're the most typical goddamn mages when it comes out to anything. Like, if you think of a mage or a magic user, you think of a high elf or a Breton, and I thought, why not? But I didn't really create her like I did the rest of these guys. I used the ESP called Minerva, which is a follower mod, because I don't know how to make a healing follower for jack shit, right? That follower, Minerva, does heal the player and those that fight alongside him. So she's actually a healing companion. When I'm not playing as her and I'm fighting, she'll start healing anyone around her, me and my companions, which is awesome. That's the main reason why I chose that ESP to be, well, the playable character. I've had to physically change it to make it fit into because Minerva's a very beautiful character, but I don't think I love the way she looks, but I wanted my Minerva to really fit in to my game, to look like the characters in my stories. And she's a very fun elf, man. Like, what kind of, like, when you think of a high elf, you think of an upstanding asshole, like just a prominent prick, like a very, pretty much like a wealthy Englishman, just an absolute asshole. Because high elves are very authoritarian, but they also think they stand above everybody else because they think they're the top shit. she's tall as she is. But I wanted to make Minerva very unique, kind of like a mix between a wood elf and a Nord. You know, she's very spicy. She likes both sexes, so she likes to get around. She likes the one sex, the chicks. And I'll get to that in a second. You know, she likes to mess around with both under the sheets. She likes to get drunk. She likes to go out and venture. She likes to party. She's not your typical high elf. She's very spontaneous. Very, you know, a bit on the naughty side. Not like the naughty side, but a bit on like she doesn't like to play by the rules, sort of typical high elven trope. She's very much her own person. That's what I love about Minerva. And plus, man, I'm not a big magical user. I don't really much like magic. But her character was really fun because she's very practical. She uses blade. She uses padded armor. She's not just a mage in a robe with a staff shooting magic at you. You know, if you get close, she will pull out the blade. But she will use her magic, and she will use what she's very powerful at to hurt anything at range. And when it gets close and she's running out of magic, she'll use her blade. She'll use her combat skills. So she's a very practical character, and I really like her because she's very much her own person, and she's not just your standard, typical, boring high elf or mage. She's quite different, and I like that. And I don't know. It's just seeing a high elf that isn't an arsehole, that's very much a true character of their own nature, is pretty cool. I like that. Now, this is actually Topher, but it's a different version of it because, you know, it's not very beneficial. I wanted to add the Thieves Guild character in the group, but it made no sense from a practicality point of view. When, again, you're the boss of the Thieves Guild, but you're hanging around with these two. Either one of them is going to win the war, right? You don't know. And the last thing you want is them knowing your business. So, the whole identity of the Nightingale, you know? So no one knows who I am. You never see her walking around. I mean, when she's needed, she pops up. When she's not, she's never seen. And I kind of really like that about her. Now, she doesn't look like Topher, the Thieves Guild character. But that's kind of the point. I wanted to hide her identity. Very much like the Grey Cowl. Now, the Grey Cowl is an artifact of Nocturnal, where if anyone puts it on, no one can remember them. No one can see their face. No one can recognize them. And I like to think that that's a unique item for those that aren't loyal or those that don't have a contract with her are able to use that, you know, for their own benefit without being owned by Nocturnal. But those of Nightingales, they get that exact same ability, but, you know, they're also locked into contract with Nocturnal, so they're wearing that armor. No one can recognize their face. And I made her like purple with like weird eyes. Now, I actually changed her while doing this story. My character for that was called, I think, Tornriel, which was an inspiration of the Wood Elf from the Hobbit series. And I just didn't feel comfortable with it. Like, again, I felt like I didn't have enough Nords, you know, that I was playing with. So I went and recreated her as a Nord. Like, you know, it's very weird seeing a Nord woman as a rogue thief character, but that's what kind of made it a bit more exciting. It was, when you see a Nord, you see a big drinking, double, you know, handed axe, great sword wielding maniac that talks about honor and stuff like that. And having one that was a rogue, very much like a Wood Elf or a Khajiit, was kind of interesting to me. So I created her a Nord, and that was on the spot, and I really liked that because Topher is, I think, the Nordic word, Viking, one of the Viking countries' words for fox. And she's got naturally red hair, pale skin, and golden eyes, very much like a fox. Which kind of ties into the grey fox, you know, the foxes are very sneaky. Out of the canine group of families, they're the thieves of the group. So she was created on the spot while I was doing this story, and I really like her. Like, I don't feel like I want to change her ever again. Like, I think this is a perfect fit for the character. She likes to jump around both sides of the sheets, but normally she prefers women. But if it requires her stealing someone's shit that she can't get to because it's a public place, or because they're surrounded by people, she'll take them home, do a bit of that, and then when she's getting the clothes on, she might slip her hands in their pockets or their drawers and take their shit and walk out. That's kind of her thing. She very much like, she probably would have known Lyris because they would have grown up in the orphanage together. Fuck, when I can talk for ages. Now, the favourite little Aurelius. He's kind of an inspiration of the ESO timeline. He's the last Tharn, I guess you could say. He's, you know, his name is the Contractor, but his character biological name is Aurelius Tharn. So kind of, he was the daughter of like this Tharn woman that owned a part of Elsewhere, I think it was. She was like the Countess Sarah. She ruled over, I think it was called Rimmon or something like that. and you get to kill his brother in the Elder Scrolls Online. So I made him up out of that, and he joined the worm cult with his like grandfather or something like that, and the other members of the family. Became a vampire to better himself because he could, live through it and this and that. But he worshipped Millie Ball. When that failed, he kind of went on his own. I like to think this armor is kind of looks like the worm cult armor in the Elder Scrolls Online. It's kind of, by then it would have been known by, this is a worm cult rogue armor. This is what they use. But by now, in the time of Skyrim, 1,000 years later, no one's going to recognise that ancient piece of gear. So it's going to become very much his own set of gear, even though it was the uniform of the faction he served back then. But now it's very much his own. He looks kind of old and rigged and a bit more enhanced, but I like that. Now, he doesn't join these guys because he's an asshole. He's callous. I mean, I think I made him talk too much in these stories, but if you've got a contract on you, you're dead. Doesn't matter if you're a 3-week-old my god, a 3-week-old baby. It doesn't matter if you're an old lady. If there's a contract on you, you're as good as dead. He'll take it. He doesn't care about your soul. He is an absolute asshole. Oh my god, which one is I gotta make sure I take the right one off. Contractor hood. Nope. Don't want to take the goddamn... There we go. So, again, I've said this in different chapters and different videos. Vampires start to look like this after they reach a certain time. The face starts to change. And that's actually... I got that from Oblivion. Because in the Dark Brotherhood questline you meet the vampire. He looks like he's very hungry. He looks like your character does when you don't feed. And you ask him about it and he goes, after a certain amount of time our faces start to kind of shift and turn, and where we can't control the way we look, and that's why Cecilia, she's only like 200 years old. She's an elder vampire. He's an ancient vampire, and he's killed quite a few people in his name. He's going to sleep for like 500 years, and now he's in Skyrim. So his timeline right now, he's out there killing people for small contracts. He's waiting for the Emperor contract, but he can't kill Victoria Vici because there's a war going on, and her fiance is on the side of the Stormcloaks, living in the Rift. But when the peace treaty comes along, which is very soon, they will be able to then take that opportunity to show their love to the world, that both Stormcloak and Imperial can set aside their differences and unite in marriage, and he'll be there to fuck all that up, and kind of continue his story a little bit. Then it gets cut off, and then it continues much later on after the war. But he won't join these guys because he doesn't give a shit. I mean, he aided in Millie Ball trying to destroy or enslave the world, so he doesn't really care about big fire-breathing lizards that, can destroy the world. He doesn't give a shit. He never has. He's very callous. I mean, he's got no soul, pretty much. He's a ginger. It's just... And again, he's my bad character. I mean, she's not a bad character, she's not a good character. I mean, the Nightingale's only here to aid the Dragonborn from burning down, to stop the dragons from burning down the world, because there's no gold to be made if she's enslaved or if Skyrim's burnt down around her. I mean, it's basically, it's a self-need why she's helping the Dragonborn. It's not because, she wants to do it for the good of Skyrim. It's because she doesn't want to lose money, and dragons aren't good for business. Him, on the other hand, pure evil. Just a nasty bit of business. And he's actually bisexual, so I want to get to the whole sexuality sort of things, right? These three are bisexual. You got this idea from Dragon Age Origins, because of the assassin there, he was like... And it's very beneficial because, again, if you can seduce both genders, you have a much better chance of killing your target, especially if he's a male, and, this and that. So I thought, why not? I'll have my very first male bisexual character. I'm a straight dude, man. I don't like that shit. I mean, I had to do one chapter where he was railing dude from behind, and my eyes squinted, man. I didn't want to watch that shit. But again, not everyone in the story in the world's going to be straight, or gay, or lesbian, or this or that. So, it's better to floor it up a little bit. Bi, prefers women, but will do men because, of jobs. Likes both. Straight, loves the ladies, loves, doesn't mind both. She's lived for 200 years, she doesn't really care anymore, and loves the ladies, right? So, we're going to just get the Dragonborn real quick, and we're going to chuck her in the mix, so we can talk about her, Ragni. Oh, the Dragonborn. So, again, I want to do a native, because, I don't know, man. When I first did her origin story, I had to voice it, and that felt weird. And And again, thanks to 11 Labs, because if it wasn't for 11 Labs, I wouldn't be doing this shit. I would be talking in the background like I'm David Attenborough about the story and this and that. The Dragonborn took a step to the left and fell off the fucking mountain. But, again, I wanted to kind of, you know, when you're like in your race menu and you're creating your character and you're thinking about their background, how'd they end up here, who are they, what happened, blah blah. That's kind of how Origins of the Dragonborn came along. And that was just the thought of the Dragonborn story in my head. So, again, her story was meant to be like, I think the first time I ever did her story was, I think her family were killed by the wandering undead in the marshes of Morthal. But the idea came to me, I'm doing the Dawnguard questline of Serana, where she goes, "Why do you hunt vampires?" And the option was there, like, they killed my entire family. I was like, fuck yeah, absolutely, second run through, we're doing vampires. And, again, it kind of worked out because there was a vampire lair nearby, Molver's lair, so I went with that one. And her family were killed by vampires, and she was raised by her father after that, because he was a very loving, caring dad, but when he lost his wife and his youngest daughter, he kind of hardened a bit and didn't want his last remaining child to be weak or, you know, defenseless out in the world, so he went from being the father to the warden. Oh my god. And, again, basically her very first story, when I created her, was just to wander Skyrim. She left home because it was just filled with ghosts. But, again, this entire chapter, man, her story went fucking bonkers. And I love that. It wrote itself. Most of it, majority of it, I think all of it. The Bard's College, for example, right? That idea came to my head when her sister, her and Lysra, were children playing the flute and the lute, and her mother and father were, like, clapping for them. That's where that idea came from, on the spot. I thought, you know, if I'd lost my sibling, my younger sibling, and we had a dream as kids to become bards, that would encourage me to follow that dream as an adult. Right. And that's where that idea came from, because the Bard's College, it just doesn't suit any of these characters. Definitely not. Certainly not. Definitely not. No. No. Probably. But no. No, and certainly not. And I thought, she's a light-hearted person that used to do some instruments with her sister and sing and that sort of stuff. It 100% fits her. She leaves home and she goes out and follows the dream that her and sister had as children. She joins the Bard's College. She has dreams of her own, maybe learning from the Bard's College, travelling around Skyrim for a bit, and then travelling across Tamriel. Because again, you're creating a character, you need to have, you know where they're going, but you need to have their dreams, what they want to do in their life. And before all that shit is thrown upside down. And that's the point of character development. They have this dream they want to follow. Her dream was like that. Travel around as a bard, you know, keep her sister's memory alive and their dream alive by, I don't know about singing because they're voiceless, playing the flute, the lute, the drum, and then travelling across Tamriel and, you know, taking stories of her and new stories. And that was her dream before winter came and vampires come. And since the vampires were quite prominent around that time, she knew that she had to do something. You know, they destroyed her family. She wouldn't let them destroy anyone else's family. She's very noble of heart. And that's kind of what you want from your main hero character. And so she joined the fight, which eventually led her into oblivion. Becoming a vampire and understanding a lot more about vampires, because again, to her it was just terminate vampires. They were evil. But while becoming one and fighting alongside one, she learnt a lot more. Again, she's noble of heart, so she kind of wears her feelings on her sleeve. Is that the heart on her sleeve? I don't know how that saying goes anymore. And she learnt quite a bit, and that's why she has quite a few of them with her right now, because she doesn't see them as the pure enemy. And again, even if she did, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So she sees the bigger picture. That's what she's always looking at, the bigger picture. Vampires, they suck ass, you know? But she knows by now they're not all evil creatures. You know, a lot of them just fall to their instinct. Because she's been a vampire, she knows what it feels like. She knows that it's not pure evil. Some of them are evil, like Harkon and other vampire, like, you know, sort of leadership. But she's learned from Valerica, she's learned from Serana and Cecilia that not all of them are evil. They just fall to their base instincts of the hunger that rides them, it controls their life. They're like a meth addict, you know. No matter how much meth they have, it just won't fix their instinct, or their just won't fix their lust for blood. But yeah, so she joined the Dawnguard, and honestly, man, I don't think this chapter has come out yet. While doing this video, but I liked how again I did not play in this. I mean, this is why I fucking love about storytelling. It's just the shit writes itself most of the time. I'm just on the side fucking winging it. Okay, I'm just fucking around and finding out. And that's the fun thing about it, is half the time I've got no control where the fuck this goes. And especially Skyrim being a very sandbox game, can be an absolute nightmare to try and record, especially this scene when you got to go into the time warp. Because Alden was being a fuckwit. Either he would get hit by Dragon Rain and start flying up in the, like those bugs, you know, like they fly around in a circle, continuously getting more altitude. He was doing that, or he would attack me, and I was meant to be a ghost or like a part of the fucking whatever. But another good thing about sandbox storytelling is a lot of times it will take its own path. So how does she become the Dragonborn? It's nothing like what you do in the vanilla game. You go to some goddamn fort, kill a dragon, you're the Dragonborn. This game is called The Elder Scrolls, right? It's based on The Elder Scrolls, these sort of godlike things that can tell the future, that are like, they write fate. They're physical bits of fate. You know, they're you know, it's literally the bones of the world, I guess you could say, as Parthenax would say. The bones of the world. And she becomes the Dragonborn while hunting for this Elder Scroll that is the Elder Scroll of Dragons. I mean, it just makes so much sense that the Dragonborn is discovered while hunting for the Elder Scroll of Dragons. This is what the entire game's based on, defeating the dragons. The Elder Scroll game on defeating the dragons, and she becomes the Dragonborn while on the hunt for that very scroll. And I didn't think about that till I think I was editing a video once I'd finished it. I was like, holy fuck, man. Because I designed that quest. When I did the Dawnguard quest, I wanted to cut it off at a certain point. I had to get at least one Elder Scroll with Valerica. And then on the hunt for the second one is when shit would hit the fan, where the plan would completely change. And again, I didn't even think about the whole stars aligning, the Dragonborn becoming the Dragonborn by hunting an Elder Scroll of the Dragons. I didn't think of that until it happened, and I was like, holy fuck, that's amazing. That's like, you know, like, I'm crediting myself for shit that I haven't even done. But, yeah, and so her story took a different path, and she eventually had to track down that Elder Scroll again, but on a different mission. Not to stop the vampires from blackening the sun, but to stop the dragons from either burning down the world or enslaving it. And that was kind of her purpose into this. Now, eventually she will return to the Dawnguard questline, and the DLCs like Dragonborn, and even the DLC mods that need the Dragonborn like Worm's Tooth. Those will be part of her story. But again, her character and Sigurd's character have kind of blown out of proportion and written themselves, which is I love that shit. And when it comes to sexuality, you know, the last Dragonborn, you know, I'm going to take a page out of what's her name, the Star Wars chick that gets bullied all the time, Kathleen Kennedy. Put a chick in it, make it gay, make it lame. No, we won't put the lame bit in there, but you know, the last Dragon was maybe the last Dragonborn, right? Bethesda are very literal about that sort of shit. So I guess she starts off liking blokes, and her very first person is my own character, which kind of sounds a bit grubby. But she eventually she starts to fall in love with the person she really hated the time there, because that person really helped her when she was in one of her worst states, and that was while being a vampire. She still has feelings to that person, but she's been away from her for a month, to where she started to reconnect with an older reconnection. Yeah, you slimy bastard. And eventually, when that person that she first started falling in love with comes into the picture, when she returns to her original questline, which she had to differ from, that romance will start to flare up again, and she'll have to walk away from the one she's recently created, and she'll fall in love with that person. So I never really designed her to be straight or bi. I mean, I remember talking to this chick, and she was married to a woman at the time. She's now getting married to a bloke, Wild Times, and she said to me that she never knew she was bi until she met that person. And she hates the word bisexual. She's just like, I like both. You know, she didn't know she liked both until she met that person. To her, it was just blokes, but this one woman came along and changed her entire perspective, and it's kind of the way that I see Ragni, that she didn't really, you know, she didn't look at women and think, fuck yeah, they're hot. It's just a natural order of things, like, that's a bloke, I'm a chick, he's nice to me, blah 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 blah, fucking insies outsies. But Serana came along and she hated her because she was a vampire, but really changed her perspective, really made her see a different way of life. And I guess that happens to a lot of people. They change your perspective on life, which also changes your perspective on them, and certain feelings can develop after certain events, especially when you hated them but they've done so much for you and this and that. And that's kind of where her romance comes from with Saran, and she might not really enjoy the look of Freya or Cecilia or Minerva. It's just kind of her soul just matches with, it could just be a soulmate thing, or her soul just really matches with Serana's, and that's kind of where she finds her love, not in the physical attraction of a woman or a man's body, but in how she feels around this person. Now, that is me probably talking for, I'll probably guess more than 45 minutes, no doubt, of these characters, their inspirations. Actually, before I go, I want to talk about her ancestry, and that was also his ancestry. But I guess it can work with either one, when he was the Dragonborn. Now, I like to think the Dragonborn, right, is the descendant of Martin Septim. Now, before you go, you had no children, who fucking knows? I mean, Martin Septim in Oblivion is meant to be in his 50s, like Ulfric is. 50s or 40s. Alright? He's either the bastard child or the hidden child of Uriel Septim. Now, when you talk to Martin in Oblivion, he discusses that he was part of a certain magical group or cult, and he saw some really bad shit, and he left them, he ran away, and he joined the priesthood. So he was probably part of a Daedric cult, or a small little gathering of, like, bad mages, and then he saw something horrible, and he left. Now, I like to think while he was with that group, while he was a younger man, he was seeing a woman in the very same cult, and he spent quite a few nights with her, and I guess one night when he saw that evil shit happen, he woke up to the call, and he left, he ran away, and he became, you know, the priest of Agatosh, Martin Septim, or Martin, whatever his name was before that. But unknowingly to him, when he ran away, that he'd already seeded a woman, and he had no idea. This woman found out that she had a child, and she would have realised that she would have been a perfect sacrifice for the group, and so she too ran away and raised that child. And throughout that 200 years, one of them could have been a Nord, you know, one of Martin's descendants could have been a Nord woman, which eventually led down to the line of Ragni, because her parents were Cyrodiilic Nords. Her mother was Bruma, and her father was Kvatch. So her descendant, or sorry, her ancestor, is actually Martin Septim in my story. So she's actually a Septim, she's a part of the Septim bloodline, which of course can't really be discovered, because Cecilia knew Martin, but she didn't taste his blood because she wasn't a vampire. So she can't really discover if Ragni is actually, you know, the descendant of the prince that she once followed alongside the Crusader. So it's just one of those, you know, things that sit in your head that only, you know, the person writing it, the story creator, knows about it. She is a descendant of Martin Septim, of Martin Septim's love child from a Daedric, or from a magical cult that he left because of evil shit and he had no idea. But again, the bloodline of the Septims continued through his actions as a younger man, and we've now got the Dragonborn of today because of it. So boom, that's kind of the story arc of all these characters and the inspirations and all this sort of shit. Hopefully this explains quite a bit about him, and you've learned something. And at the end of the day, what I really hope for people to get out of this is to be inspired and to take things. Like, I would love to see people, you know, especially similar characters to me, or even taken my characters, aspects of my characters, and made their own from it. You know, like, someone's got a Freya out there, but it's a Nord male, or a Breton male, or something like that. Just where people will take hints and bits and pieces of my character and put it into their own world. That's the kind of thing that I'd love to see. But also, what I'd really love to see is people that do this. They have multiple character play stories that make sense, that fit into the world of Skyrim, that just make it feel like Skyrim. You know, it's not some anime crazy sort of shit where they're all just backwards or weird sort of shit. I don't know how to really explain it, but I'd love to see people that have taken this path and have made a really cool story out of what is already there, but enhanced it to be like a novel. Oh, anyway, I've talked for way too long, and I mean, if I start talking about this shit, I'll be here for days. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. The best way for this, you know, to interact with me is in the comments section, because I love comments, man. Comments are people. Views are just numbers, but comments are from people. And if you've got any questions like that, or any ideas, or any of your own characters that you've blended from mine, or characters that pretty much are mirrors of mine that you've made, let me know in the comments, because that's always cool and interesting to hear of what characters have you made that blend with mine, or hints of ones you've taken from mine. Oh, anyway, I'm going to get to getting my cheeks spread by Elduin. No Lover's Lab included, just metaphorically, practically getting bullied, but I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good one.